The underground auction wasn't meant for people like Naira alone. It was meant for power, for monsters dressed as nobles, for men who bought loyalty, territory, and sometimes things far worse. Naira stayed where she always did at the edges. Half-hidden, unnoticed, safe. That was how she survived. Stay quiet. Stay invisible. Never give anyone a reason to look twice. The room pulsed with low voices and shifting shadows, the scent of wealth and danger thick in the air. Bids rose and fell. Laughter followed cruelty too easily. Then, silence. It didn't creep in. It fell. Heavy. Immediate. Absolute. Naira felt it before she understood it. A shift in power. Every instinct in her body went still. Someone had arrived. She didn't want to look. Looking meant being seen. And being seen here was dangerous. But the silence stretched too long. Too unnatural. Slowly, she lifted her gaze. He stood across the room like he owned it, like he owned everything it touched. The Lycan King. No announcement had been made. None was needed. Power moved with him. Command followed him. And without trying, he controlled the entire space. Naira's breath slowed. Not in calm. In warning. His gaze moved once, lazy, deliberate, across the crowd. Then it stopped. On her. Her heart stuttered. No. Not possible. People like him didn't see people like her. Didn't notice them. Didn't care. But he wasn't looking away. If anything, his focus sharpened, as if something about her had caught. Held. The distance between them suddenly felt too small. Too exposed. Then he spoke. Do you belong to anyone? The words cut clean through the silence. Not loud, but impossible to ignore. Naira didn't realize he was speaking to her until the space around her shifted, until people stepped back just enough to leave her standing alone. Seen. Fully. Her pulse roared in her ears. She should lie. She should say yes. Say anything that would make him lose interest. Walk away. But the word slipped out before she could stop it. No. The moment it left her lips. She felt it. Like something unseen had locked into place. The room didn't move, didn't breathe, because everyone understood something she didn't yet. Naira alone had just made herself visible to the most dangerous man in the room, and he hadn't looked away. The Lycan King moved. He didn't rush, didn't hesitate, but the effect was immediate. The crowd parted before him, bodies shifting instinctively, like prey sensing something far above them in the chain. No one spoke. No one dared. Naira couldn't move. Her feet felt rooted to the ground as he crossed the distance between them, slow, deliberate, inevitable. Every step tightened something in her chest. Closer. The air changed around her. He stopped in front of her. Up close, he was worse. Not just powerful. Overwhelming. His presence pressed in from all sides, sharp and controlled, like something that could snap without warning, but never lost control. His gaze swept over her. Not dismissive. Not curious. Intent. Like he was memorizing her. Naira's breath faltered. She had never been looked at like this before. Not by anyone. Lift your head, he said. The command was quiet, but it wasn't a suggestion. Her body reacted before her mind could argue. Her chin lifted. Their eyes met fully. And something shifted. Not in the room. In her. A strange heat spread through her chest, unfamiliar and unsettling, like her body was responding to something deeper than fear. His gaze darkened slightly, as if he felt it too. Then you do now, he said. Naira barely had time to process the words before his hand closed around her wrist. Zan. Unyielding. Not painful, but absolute. The contact sent a sharp pulse through her body fast, electric, disorienting. Her breath caught. The world narrowed. To him. To the point where his skin touched hers. To the way her pulse seemed to fall into rhythm with something stronger. Something steadier. No one moved. No one objected. Because no one would. When a Lycan King claimed something, it wasn't questioned. It was accepted. Naira swallowed, her thoughts scrambling to catch up. This isn't, she started. His grip tightened slightly. Not a warning. A reminder. It is, he said. Simple. Final. Her protest died before it could form. Because the truth settled in too quickly. Too completely. She hadn't just been noticed. She had been chosen. And in this world, that was far more dangerous. Naira had spent her entire life learning how not to be seen. It wasn't weakness. It was survival. No name worth remembering. No bloodline worth claiming. Just another girl in a world where the strong decided who mattered and who didn't. She had learned early. Attention was dangerous. Being chosen was worse. And yet, now she stood at the center of a room that had never once noticed her before. Because of him, the Lycan king didn't release her. Not when the auction resumed. Not when voices cautiously returned. His hand remained around her wrist, steady, grounding, inescapable. Not dragging her, but making it clear. She wasn't leaving. Naira's senses sharpened the longer she stood beside him. Every sound felt louder. Every movement sharper. But most of all, him. His presence didn't fade into the background. It consumed it. She could feel him even when he wasn't moving. A constant, controlled force at her side. "You're not from here," he said suddenly. Naira glanced at him. Carefully. "No." His gaze flicked down to her again. Assessing. "You don't belong here." It wasn't an insult. It was fact. "I know," she said quietly. A pause. Then, "Good." The word caught her off guard. Naira frowned slightly. "Good." His lips curved, just barely. "I don't take what everyone else has already claimed." Her breath stilled. Something in the way he said it. Whoa. Certain. Possessive without raising his voice. Sent a strange tension through her chest. "I wasn't available to take," she said, trying to steady herself. His gaze sharpened. "You were invisible," he corrected. The truth landed harder than it should have. Because it wasn't wrong. Naira looked away. For years, that had been her shield. Her safety. No. It felt like something else entirely. Something that had just been stripped away. His grip loosened slightly, not releasing her, but shifting. Adjusting. As if he was aware of every reaction she had. "You don't like being seen," he said. It wasn't a question. Naira swallowed. "No." Another pause. Then his voice dropped quieter. "But you didn't lie." Her pulse stumbled. Because that was the part she didn't understand either. Why she had answered him. Why she hadn't protected herself. His thumb brushed lightly against her wrist. A small movement. But it sent a sharper reaction through her than anything else. "Interesting," he murmured. Naira's breath caught. Because she realized something in that moment. He wasn't losing interest. If anything, she had just become more dangerous to him. And far more trapped than before. Naira wasn't locked away. That was the unsettling part. No guards at her door. No chains. No threats spoken aloud. And yet, she wasn't free. The Lycan king kept her close. Not constantly beside him, but never far enough to forget. A room had been given to her quiet, untouched, far above the underground chaos she had come from. It was more comfort than she had ever known. And somehow, that made it worse. Because comfort came with expectation. With attention. With him. Days passed without explanation. No one questioned her presence. No one challenged his decision. They simply accepted it, which told her everything she needed to know about his power. Naira learned quickly. Where to stand. When to speak. When to remain silent. But none of that helped with the one thing she couldn't control. His presence. It followed her. Not physically, but constantly. A weight at the edge of her awareness. A pull she didn't understand. Then came the night she couldn't ignore it. The balcony overlooked the city, lights scattered like distant stars. Naira stood at the edge, hands resting lightly against the cold stone. For the first time, she felt almost calm. "You could leave." His voice came from behind her. Whoa. Measured. Naira didn't turn. She had already learned. He never made empty statements. You wouldn't let me, she replied. Silence followed. Not tense. Not uncertain. Just quiet. Then, no. The honesty should have unsettled her. It should have confirmed everything she feared. But instead, it did something else. Something slower. Warmer. Because there was no deception in it. No manipulation. Just truth. Naira turned then. He stood a few steps away, shadows cutting across his face, his expression unreadable, but focused. Always focused. Why? She asked. A simple question. One he hadn't answered since the beginning. His gaze held hers. Long. Deliberate. As if weighing something she couldn't see. You stayed, he said finally. Naira frowned slightly. That's not an answer. No, he agreed. Another step closer. Measured. Controlled. But it's the only one that matters. Her breath caught. Because the space between them had changed again. Smaller. Sharper. More dangerous. And for the first time, Naira wondered if leaving had ever truly been an option. Or if, the moment she said no, she had already chosen this. The longer Naira stayed, the harder it became to ignore him. It wasn't just his presence. It was what came with it. A constant awareness. A pull that didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger. She noticed it in small moments. When he passed too close behind her. When his voice dropped just enough to reach only her. When his hand brushed hers, brief but deliberate. Each contact lingered longer than it should. Not on her skin. Deeper. Her body reacted before she could stop it. A quickened pulse. A tightening breath. Something unfamiliar. Something dangerous. Naira hated it. Because it didn't feel like fear. You feel it. His voice came from nowhere and everywhere. She turned sharply. He stood there, watching her. Always watching. I don't know what you mean, she said. A lie. His gaze didn't shift. You do. The certainty in his tone made it impossible to argue. Naira crossed her arms, more to study herself than anything else. It's just your presence, she said. Anyone would react the same way. He stepped closer. One step. That was all it took. The air tightened. No, he said quietly. They wouldn't. Her breath caught. Because she knew he was right. No one else looked affected. No one else seemed pulled. Just her. Then stop, she said quickly. The words came out sharper than she intended. Whatever this is, just stop it. His expression didn't change. But something in his eyes darkened. I'm not doing anything, he said. The truth in it unsettled her more than anything else. Because if it wasn't him, then it was her. Naira took a step back. Distance. She needed distance. But it didn't help. The pull didn't weaken. It stretched. Followed. Adapted. You're not afraid, he said again. The same observation as before. But this time, it felt different. Naira shook her head. I am. He studied her. Long. Carefully. Then. But not of me. The words landed softly. But they stayed. Because they were true. And that was the part she didn't know how to handle. The tension in the hall shifted before the first word was spoken. Naira felt it immediately. Not the quiet control that followed the Lycan king, but something sharper. Hostile. Eyes turned. Voices lowered. And done. You risk a great deal for something so insignificant. The words cut through the room, smooth, but edged with challenge. Naira's body stilled. She didn't need to look to know who had spoken. An alpha. Not just any. One powerful enough to speak without permission. That alone made him dangerous. Naira felt it then. The shift beside her. The Lycan king didn't react outwardly. Didn't turn immediately. But something in the air grew heavier. Denser. Like a storm about to break. She's nothing, the alpha continued, stepping forward into the open. A stray. No name. No value. Each word landed like it was meant to provoke. To test. Naira's fingers curled at her sides, Not from anger, from exposure. This was the world she knew, the one where people like her were measured and dismissed. But this time, she wasn't standing alone. Silence stretched across the hall, thick, waiting. Everyone was watching now. Not for Tim, waiting to see what he would do. The Lycan King stepped forward. One movement. That was all it took. The space shifted instantly. Authority snapped back into place. He didn't raise his voice, didn't show anger. But when he spoke, the entire room listened. She is not yours to measure. The Alpha smirked slightly. And yet you stake your authority on her. A challenge. Clear. Deliberate. Dangerous. Naira's pulse quickened. Because this wasn't about her anymore. It was about power. Reputation. Dominance. The kind of things men killed for. The Lycan King turned then. Fully. His gaze settled on the Alpha. Cold. Final. You mistake my patience for permission, he said. The room went still. No movement. No sound. Because everyone understood what came next. Would define everything. And Naira, for the first time, realized just how dangerous it was. To be the reason a king might choose to act. The silence didn't break. It tightened. Every eye in the hall locked onto the Lycan King. Waiting. Measuring. Because what he did next would settle everything. The rival Alpha didn't back down. If anything, he stepped closer. Bold. Reckless. You claim something beneath you, he said, voice low but carrying. That weakens you. Naira felt the words land. Not new. Not unfamiliar. But different this time. Because they weren't being said behind her back. They were being thrown directly into the center of power. At him. At the king. And still, the Lycan King didn't react immediately. He simply stepped forward, placing himself between Naira and the Alpha. A subtle movement, but final. Protective. Possessive. The shift was instant. The tension in Naira's chest eased. Not completely, but enough. Because now, she wasn't exposed. The Alpha's smirk faltered. Just slightly. Because even he understood what that position meant. The Lycan King's voice came next. Calm. Controlled. Unshaken. She is mine. The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. They carried. Through the hall. Through every person watching. Through Naira herself. Something in her chest tightened. Not from fear. From something deeper. Something that settled beneath her ribs and refused to move. The Alpha's expression hardened. That's not how this works, he said. You don't claim strays without consequence. A pause. A test. The Lycan King didn't look at him again. Didn't acknowledge the challenge. Instead, his hand found Naira's. Warm. Steady. Certain. And that somehow felt more powerful than anything else. I decide what holds value, he said. Final. Absolute. The kind of truth that didn't require agreement. Only acceptance. The Alpha didn't speak again. Because he couldn't. The challenge had ended the moment the king made his decision clear. Not through force, but through certainty. The room shifted. Respect returned. Order restored. But Naira couldn't look away from their joined hands. Because for the first time, she understood something she hadn't before. This wasn't impulse. Wasn't curiosity. Wasn't temporary. He hadn't just taken her. He had chosen her. And in this world. That meant everything. The hall eventually emptied. Voices faded. Tension dissolved into quiet distance. But Naira couldn't shake what had settled inside her. The weight of his words. The certainty behind them. She is mine. It echoed long after the moment had passed. She found him later on the balcony. The same place. The same stillness. Only this time, everything felt different. You didn't have to do that, she said. Her voice was steady, but softer than before. He didn't turn immediately. Yes, I did. The answer came without hesitation. Naira stepped closer. Not forced. Not pulled. Chosen. That wasn't just about him, she said. or the challenge. Now he looked at her, his gaze sharp, focused, unreadable. No. The single word settled between them. Heavy. Then she asked the question she hadn't been able to ignore. Why me? Silence followed. Longer this time. Not avoidance. Consideration. As if the answer mattered. As if she did. He stepped closer. Slowly. Deliberately. Until the space between them felt intentional. Measured. You said you belonged to no one, he said. Her breath caught. You weren't claimed. Weren't protected. Weren't seen. Each word landed deeper than the last. Not cruel. Just true. And that mattered to you? She asked. His gaze didn't waver. It made you yours. The answer wasn't what she expected. Naira's chest tightened. Because no one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever looked at her and seen. Not lack. Not absence. But something whole. I didn't take you because you were nothing, he continued, voice lower now. I took you because no one else had. Her breath unsteady, Naira held his gaze. And for the first time, she understood. This wasn't ownership. Not in the way she had feared. It was something else. Something sharper. More deliberate. You could still walk away, he said quietly. The same words as before. But now, they felt different. Real. A choice. Naira didn't answer. Because for the first time, she wasn't thinking about escape. She was thinking about staying. Naira didn't sleep that night. The palace was quiet. Still. But her thoughts weren't. You could still walk away. The words stayed with her. Not as a warning. Not as a threat. But as something far more unsettling. A choice. For most of her life, choices had never really been hers. Survival didn't allow for them. You adapted or you disappeared. And yet now, he had given her one. Not forced. Not demanded. Offered. Naira stood at the edge of the balcony as dawn began to break, pale light spilling across the horizon. The world looked different from here. Wider. Quieter. Like something waiting. You're still here. His voice came from behind her. Low. Certain. She didn't turn immediately. I am. A pause. Then he stepped closer. Not enough to trap her. Just enough to be felt. Why? He asked. Simple. Direct. Naira exhaled slowly. Because this time, she had an answer. She turned to face him. Fully. I've spent my whole life being nothing to everyone, she said. Her voice didn't shake. You're the first person who looked at me and didn't see something missing. His gaze held hers. Unmoving. Uninterrupting. You didn't choose me because I was useful, she continued. Or powerful. Or convenient. A breath. You chose me because I was me. Something shifted in his expression. Subtle, but real. Naira stepped closer, closing the distance herself. And I stayed, she said quietly, because for the first time, I wanted to. Silence settled between them. But it wasn't empty. It was full. Certain. His hand lifted slow, deliberate, and rested against her cheek. Warm. Grounded. A touch that asked nothing, but meant everything. Then stay, he said. Not a command. Not a claim. A choice returned. Naira didn't hesitate. She leaned into his touch. And this time, she didn't feel taken. She felt seen.